Hello, welcome to Symmetry Live. This is Natasha Helfer, and I'm so glad to be here with Jenny Elledge and Lindsay McFadden. Hello. Hello, everybody.
Hello.
A big congrats to you, Lindsay, on a wedding that you just had this week. So that's pretty exciting. And I don't know, Jenny, you and I guess, congratulations for showing up today, right?
Yeah.
That's pretty. All right, today we thought we would address a question that we got from one of our listeners. And the question went something like this. I don't have it right in front of me, but I'm going to try to remember. It was basically like, we are going through a challenge in our lives, and it's hard in our marriage to pretty much not have every conversation, every waking hour not be affected by this challenge. And how can we take a break from what's pretty much feeling like is now interfering with every other aspect of our relationship and kind of deteriorating our relationship in the process? This particular couple was referring to a faith transition, but I just want to say I've heard this from like so many different types of themes. One that came up for me right away is infertility. That can be a problem that can kind of become all consuming, especially if you're going through like in vitro treatments or all kinds of things that can all of a sudden your whole life revolves around this issue. It also can be something that can be dealing with like a chronic illness, or even not necessarily a chronic illness, but like an illness that for example, cancer treatment that's going to be in your life for maybe a year to 3 years, right? Versus maybe not terminal or forever, but still a long period of time. This can also be the case with adolescents or children. Like if you have a kid who's going through some developmental issues or mental health issues, boy, that can be a very stressful, chronic concern that kind of can take up a lot of the energy in your marriage, right? So there's a variety of things that can come up in life that can feel all consuming. So how do we take a break? Is there a possibility to take a break? How can you take a break from something that's kind of in your face every day? That's what we're here to talk about. So any initial thoughts from either one of you or other examples that you think of when you think of this topic?
Well, yeah, my initial thought is, well, like you said, you can take a break, but then how often are you bumping up against that issue? Is that happening on a daily basis? Is it happening, every week? Have you figured out what to do about it? Are you bumping up against it because you haven't really negotiated any possible, even temporary solution to that problem? So that might be why you keep talking about it, because you're still not sure what to do. However, if you're talking about it and you kind of know, all right, this is where I'm at, this is where you're at, and now we have to kind of learn to tolerate that type of space, that might be a good time to kind of take a pause on things and only visit that topic every so often instead of like an all the time type of thing.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good thought. It's like how much of this we really can't take a break from because we have to make decisions versus maybe we've made some of the decisions and now can we create pockets of breaks in order to just give us some sustainable energy to move forward, right? I think is what I hear you saying a lot of. What about
Yeah,
you? What are you thinking?
that's what I was thinking is it's good. It would have to be like a very conscious effort on your part, maybe to say like tonight on date night, we're not going to talk about that, just like that is off topic for now. I don't know that I could see myself taking like a 6-month break. That doesn't seem feasible to me at all, but creating pockets of breaks or, specific times where you're just not going to try not to think about something. I know I've got issues in my life that I've had to do that with just because, I think you need a mental break now and then, but it is hard not to. I don't think you could say I'm not just going to think about it for an extended period of time or not talk about it, but certainly creating pockets like that would be ideal.
Yeah, no, I love that idea. And I see that as kind of both proactively taking a break from a conversation or proactively making spaces to have those conversations only at certain times. So in other words, like the date night idea. Okay, so on date nights, on Friday nights, no matter what, we are not going to talk about this topic. We're going to talk about everything else. Or the other way is like, okay, this is a topic that seems to come up a lot. Why don't we contain it so that maybe twice a week we agree to have like a 45-minute conversation about the topic, and that's the allotted time we're giving it to address some of these issues, so that it's not always. And then also you can prepare yourself for those moments, right? You can come kind of prepared with your bullet points, or what type of decision are we actually addressing on this particular, instead of having, some of these problems can be all consuming and you can kind of tangent, and then the conversations feel lost and they've lasted 4 to 5 hours and you're at your wit's end and you're exhausted and you're not really coming up with a lot of solutions at that point.
I like that idea too, Natasha, of creating times that you're dedicating to talking about something, only because I know my own personality. I tend to, if things get too stressful, I want to just avoid it and back away and not talk about it. So I like the idea of also creating times when you're consciously talking about something that needs to be talked about, and you know going into it that that's the purpose of it, so that you're not avoiding talking about it either.
I think creating intentional times will allow for that anxiety to have a place to go. So if you feel like I really want to talk to my partner about this all the time, and you don't have that set time, you might be like, well, this is just an open topic all the time, right? And then you might get into that sort of pursuer withdraw relationship that's not very fun. So the intentional setup times, I like that idea.
Yeah, and that reminded me too that like a lot of people, for one person taking a break, which sounds really nice, can feel to the other person like you're avoiding me, or you're avoiding the situation, which does not sound very nice and can increase somebody's anxiety, right? And so I like kind of honoring both perspectives. There's probably some wisdom in the take a break kind of idea that maybe this is becoming an overwhelming topic, and there's also some wisdom in staying engaged enough and making sure that we're making space for that topic to be present. So yeah, no, I really like that a lot.
Because if you're talking about anxiety, we don't want to do the avoiding thing, because that's only going to strengthen that connection to this is something to be anxious about. So we have to be mindful about what that looks like. You want to build up your own personal resilience. Like if you're the person that has anxiety, you want to learn how to deal with that on your own without always going to your partner and always talking to your partner, because now you're learning to like, my anxiety only goes down after I can talk to my partner. And that's kind of a heavy load for your partner to take on. So you want to be kind of mindful of the balance between the sharing part, but also I got to take care of my own stuff on my own.
Self-care, absolutely. As you were saying that, I'm thinking to myself going, I probably need to work on that one. As far as, I rely on other people a lot of times to bring down my anxiety, but building my own self-coping mechanisms, my own self-care, whether it's through exercise or meditation or some type of ritual, going on a walk with my dogs or watching a show, or there's lots of solo activities that can help me kind of regulate my anxiety and my pain or whatever it is that I'm experiencing in that moment, for sure. Yeah. I was going to talk about, and maybe Lindsay, you can share your thoughts about this, but a lot of times when there's a problem, right, we're wired in our brains to really focus in on problems, right? Like it's like the deer in the field, right? And you've got like they're eating the grass, and as soon as that twig snaps, it's like they're alert. And there is that in us. There's that survival instinct in us that we're more likely to pay attention to that negative thing than the other 500 things that are going on. So when you're looking at a relationship, a marriage or a friendship even, or even a familial relationship, if there's a problem, especially kind of an extensive problem like we're talking about that really isn't anybody's fault per se, your brain is kind of wired to focus in on that particular problem. And then all these other things can kind of go lacking, So when you think about intimacies, for example, like how do we emotionally connect with another person? How do we intellectually connect with another person, right? How do we spiritually connect with another person? How do we physically connect with another person? This hypervigilance on this one topic can really interfere with all those other ways that you typically know how to connect, but now this one thing is taking up all the room. Any thoughts on kind of focusing in on being mindful and focusing in on these other areas and not forgetting that there's a lot more than just the one problem in the room?
I think I like that idea of just compartmentalizing it a little bit. And I think that is the idea of taking a break and putting it aside. And I think being self-aware and aware of the different types of intimacies is super important. So I think just having conversations like this right now, to help yourself become aware, okay, this is really infiltrating every aspect of my life. And so if I can just compartmentalize it and, put it aside and realize that there's other things that I have to focus on, and I can't, we can't let any one thing take over all of our lives. It's just not healthy. So that's, I think, the idea of taking a break from time to time and, intentionally doing something specific for whatever part of that intimacy you feel like is lacking, or all of them, if they're all lacking, do something to emotionally connect with your partner or physically connect, something very specific and intentional, with that goal in mind of connecting in that specific way outside of the problem, and then putting it aside and coming back to it when you feel more connected in that way.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Jenny, any final thoughts from you?
Well, yeah, I mean, we're talking about the solutions, right? We're talking about the solution to the actual normal experience of having, these acute crises. I mean, that's part of the human experience, right? So if you're in that kind of crisis moment and you're doing all the things around that one thing, that's kind of a normal human experience. So we're just talking about what to do after that to manage that. So if you're in that crisis moment, don't think, oh my gosh, there's something wrong with me. It's like, no, not really. That's all of us, right? All of us have to go through that. We're just offering you some different ideas on what to do about that.
I love it.
It's hard to see that when you're in the middle of it. Like, it's easy for me to sit here and be like, well, you should emotionally connect and put that aside. Like, that's really hard to do when you're in the middle of something. So I'm not saying that that's an easy thing to do, but trying to be self-aware and aware of, even being aware of it is a huge step, I think, is the first huge step.
I think you want to be just kind of aware when it goes from acute, meaning short and intense, to being the sort of chronic, long sort of thing that's taking over everything. So, I mean, having acute, intense moments is going to happen. That's where you problem solve. Like, what are we going to do about this type of thing? Oh, why is this happening? Or you have to go see other people, other professionals to help you out with that. That's pretty normal. When it becomes chronic, that's when you go, okay, well, not all of life can be about this one thing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's reminding me of COVID right now, right? Like, this has turned into a chronic problem for all of us to have to learn how to manage, the ways that we're going to function as a family, as a community, in our jobs. And it hasn't gone away. We are still managing it. And so that can be emotionally exhausting. And so how do we take moments to, like, in the COVID, for example, our family's taking like COVID-free outings. So we'll go out in nature and take a hike, and we actually call it a COVID-free outing because we're going to pretend for a moment, because we could have done this pre-COVID or post-COVID. We're going to pretend for a minute that this is just a normal part of our life, and so kind of giving ourselves a chance to think about it from that perspective is kind of what we're talking about. How do you give yourselves a break? If you're having like infertility sex all the time, how do you have sex once a month or twice a month where you just pretend you're not having infertility issues, right? Where If you're going through a faith transition, how do you pretend for a date? You're not really on at such different pages, you know, like you can just be who you typically are, you know. So those are all ways to think about giving yourselves a break without going into dysfunctional avoidance.
I love that. I love that COVID-free thing. That's so cute. I love that. Let's just pretend. I love that idea. Pretending. That's the answer.
Pretending, right? That's how kids do. That's how kids do mental health. You go to war zones. What are they pretending? They're pretending to shoot at each other. That may be concerning to us, but in some ways, what they're doing is they're managing their stress and they're managing really difficult themes in their life by playing them out, you know. And so our imaginations and our fantasies and our playfulness is oftentimes a tool and resource that we as adults kind of forget to use as well as kids do. So anything that you can do that's playful can really be helpful. Awesome.
Okay. Well, I want to have a playful weekend then. I want to
Let's
have a playful COVID-free weekend.
Let's do it. It's Friday. That's our big takeaway today. Everybody try to have a somewhat COVID-free either weekend or weekend date or something. Where you can take a break from thinking about some of these things. All right, so here at Symmetry, just to let everybody know, we are a mental health and wellness coaching entity. We offer services online and in office and through chat and through phone, depending on where you're at and what kinds of services you need. If we can't help you, we're more than happy to give you some ideas or referrals or resources of where you can get the help that you need. So feel free to contact us at symmetrysouls.com. Lindsay is one of our wellness coaches. She's out of Colorado, and Jenny is one of our mental health therapists and wellness coaches out of Florida. So thanks for being part of my team, you guys. I love it. And we'll see you all next week. Take care.
Bye.
Good weekend, everybody.
You
Bye-bye.
too. Bye.